Okay, I'm going to share. I'm going to share this screen here. So I don't know, does anybody know what painting this is? Has anyone seen this before? Yes, that's a yes. And this is obviously Starry Night by Vincent van Gogh. This is one of everybody's favorite paintings a lot of the time. And this is one of mine. And one of the first exercises I did in art school was learn how to describe a painting or picture or some piece of art in as few words as possible. How can you look at something and describe it in as few words as possible? And I think I thought of this exercise because I thought you guys kind of do need to describe things in as the most truncated way, in the least amount of words that you can, so that things are clear for people. And without looking at paintings in class, we would sit around and we would come up with our few words and see if people could guess. And I chose this one. I said blue and purple sparkling swirls. And everybody knew what I was talking about. Everyone knew because it was this common language. Um, I think something fun for you guys to maybe do, and I don't know if you want to just do it for yourselves because I don't know if this is interactive or not. I'm going to put up some different paintings. I'm going to say some of the things I see. I'd like you guys to try to come up with a way to describe them in as few words as possible and see what you can come up with. See if you can do that. I'm going to put up a different guy. Someone's very famous. This is going to be another very famous one. And I'm just going to put it up for a minute and I will give my thoughts too. You guys have probably seen this one too, right? This is a really famous one. And you can see that this description down below says figure on cliffside walkway holding head with hands. Really, this is called The Scream by Edward Munch. And at different times in our history, people have considered using this figure of his hands on the face as something to warn people in the future of where nuclear waste is at. If you guys could describe this in as few words as possible, what would you do? Can you come up with something? And you can include the colors that you see or the colors that pop out to you. You can include what figures you see, what action you see being taken, and see what you can do. I don't know, Jenny, do they chat back at all, or do they chime in at all, or do they just listen?
Unmute yourself, please. Participate in the meeting. You can show your face too, please.
And if you, I think you probably have the chat, right, Jenny? You could probably read what some people come up with in the chat. Can you do that?
I don't see any chat.
No, nobody's gonna chat. Okay, all right, it's okay. I do work with kids all the time. In my free time, I work with teaching kids how to write, and I understand, guys. It's okay. So I think that even this little description on Wikipedia, figure on cliffside walking, holding head with hands, is pretty good. I might say something like screaming person holding ears, or screaming person holding face. I might even include something about the background because it seems like it's very important to this painting. The fiery colors in back seem very important. So I don't know if you guys can come up with anything, but you should.
I got an answer.
You got one? Okay.
Yeah, screaming head in front of the sunset.
Oh, that's good.
Orange sunset. Shocked person on a walkway. Screaming person on bridge at sunset. Deformed baby screaming on Grand Canyon. Yes.
That is so good. Those are great, guys. Those are really good. Those are wonderful. I like how they're all pretty different too. I've never thought of a baby screaming on Grand Canyon, but I can see that now. I can see that. Um, okay, and I'm gonna put, yeah, shock person. Very good. Bridget Sunset. Nice. So I don't know if I haven't seen any of the Youdescribe trainings, but do they usually tell you guys to use as few words, or is it that they're asking you to just give the most accurate description no matter how many words you give? What is
Uh,
it that
I think they decide what to.
you decide? Okay, okay.
Okay.
Well, I'm gonna put up this other one that I think is really fun. This is one of my favorites. Let's see if we get a good image of this guy. You guys might know who this guy is now because Jay-Z and Beyonce are appropriating some of his work for some ads. I don't know if you guys have seen this before. This is The Warrior by Jean-Michel Basquiat. This is kind of a really fun one to describe. I'd like to know what you guys see. Can you guys chime in and see what you can come up with in as few words as possible? It's definitely different than the other work we saw.
Dylan said, skeleton guy with a sword. I would say the skeleton guy with a hair dryer on
With
his.
a hair dryer. Yeah, it does look like a hair dryer. It does. You can see that. Yeah, a lot of Basquiat's work has been compared to the work of children, which makes it really accessible. And it certainly does. There's a lot of playfulness in there, but at the same time, um, he is still always bringing his race into the calculation. He was a gay Black guy who was very, um, open about his identity and working for racial justice through his art. Um, anyway, so it's really interesting because he has really simple eyes compared to uh, even the eyes in the Scream, right? This person sees the world entirely differently than most of us do. He's still looking a little bit through that child lens, I think, which it it makes me like it. It makes me like him.
Mhm.
Um, so when I see this, I do see too man with sword.
Mhm.
Um, I also can see child with sword. I definitely see that sword there. Maybe child with sword and green hair, red eyes, something like that.
Cecily, I have a question. Can you
Yeah.
see other volunteers?
Oh, I see a chat. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, we have skeleton. Yes. Oh, I
Okay.
like yellow blue patches. Very good.
Come on, guys.
Yeah.
Yes.
Skeleton with green hair, a sword in front of blue yellow background. Silver skeleton. Oh, I love that with green hair, splotchy blue and yellow background. Yeah, very good. Very nice skeleton guy with sword. Nice, guys. Um, okay. Those are the pictures I'm going to show. Um, in screenwriting, in what I do, it's kind of very similar to what we just did, which is trying to give few words to something that is happening. The only difference is that it's now something that's in motion, which is really close to what you guys are doing. You guys are doing something with motion. Things are moving, which means you're going to have to pull out all your middle school action words, I think. So all of your words that sort of show that something is happening, and that keep us involved as a reader. When you guys transcribe, and of course people hear it. For what I do, I write it and it still has to seem like it's moving. So I'm going to show you a little blurb about how to show that something is moving in a more effective way. I got this one. Give me a second. I pulled up a bunch of things today to show you guys. Okay. And And this one is actually just from a website called Final Draft, which is a tool. It's like a software that most writers use to write. There's a few different ones, but this is the predominant one. Um, and this is just on their website about the technicality of writing. This is what a lot of my writing looks like. This int is really interior. It's kind of like if you read a play, it says Joe's apartment day. So it tells us when. You certainly don't have that in the Youdescribe videos, but it says pizza boxes and beer cans litter the floor. Joe sleeps on the sofa. Okay. So, and they're saying here the word sofa is an orphan. That means it hangs over. Don't worry about that. But you can see it's a little long. It could get simpler. So then it can just become trash litters the floor. Joe sleeps on the sofa. It gets the exact same point across, right? Um, it may or may not be important to say something like pizza boxes and beer cans litter the floor. You may be able to get away with just trash because if something's not going to happen with that pizza later, who cares, right? It can just be trash or garbage. Here's another that gives a little bit more information. Pizza boxes and beer cans litter the floor. Joe sleeps on the sofa and snores loudly. That makes it more interesting because all of a sudden now he is creating some sort of action in there. And we can see something about his character, which is he's a snorer. Here's the action word part that I want you to pay attention to. This is infinitely more interesting when we say Joe sleeps, bang, a loud sound wakes him. He gets up. That's way better than Joe is sleeping when suddenly there's a loud noise that wakes him up. It's kind of snoozy,
Yeah.
right? It's a little. Use your verbs, use your action words, your describing words. These are them. And in screenwriting, we can do stuff like that where we put it in caps and give an exclamation. Um, I looked at a few Youdescribes. I didn't really see any that did any like this, where it was like, bang, the door slams, and that might be more interesting for the people who are listening to them. It gives a sense of movement and space. Do you guys notice that? The second one is much more flat. It's like you are telling the story, not showing the story. Do you guys remember that too? You probably hear that now, even in high school. Teachers will still tell you, show, don't tell, show, don't tell. Have you guys heard that before? I'm going to assume you probably have. So something like Joe sleeps, bang, a loud sound wakes him. Yeah, Lois. So this kind of thing, I would say you maybe want to take note of that and try to incorporate that into your writing. It's going to make it more interesting to the people listening to it. All right. Here they're showing all the examples of how to do details, and there's all kinds. And you guys kind of do some of this already. We have the pizza boxes and empty beer cans litter the floor again, a vase of fresh cut flowers on a doily on the baby grand piano, a sleek sofa with built-in remote control, faces the walls sized flat screen TV, wall-to-wall bookshelves create a fortress around an easy chair and lamp. Those give really good visuals, right? Those do give really good visuals. And in screenwriting, like what they're saying here is less is more, and that really is true. And I'd assume that would probably be true for you guys too, since some of the videos I saw, the movement, it's not like you can slow down how fast the video is going. So the only way to solve that problem for yourselves is to use as few words as you can, right? To sort of whittle it down and to make them the most interesting that you can. Why don't we look at something and try that for ourselves? I'll get you here. Do you guys ever do anything like the bang? Anything like that? Let's see, I see something. I see a Dylan said, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's see if I put something here. I'm going to put up this script, and there are a million scripts and online. There are two different kinds. This is from Inside Out, from Pixar, which is near us over in Emeryville. You guys probably saw this one, right? This is the one where the little girl and all her feelings, she had like sadness inside of her, all these different feelings inside. It's really, really cute. If you haven't seen it, I recommend this one. So this is what it looks like. This is what we call a shooting script because it says zoom in on her head. These are camera directions. So I already know this is a shooting script and not what we call a spec script, which is the first version. And you can see this is actually really good description. Out of the blackness steps a glowing figure. That's really good. It's almost like a book, right? But it's just enough. This is joy. The room is black except for a bright consciousness screen. And we don't really know what that is. But we find out in a few minutes. It says in front of Joy is a single large button. She pushes it. And that's all the information that we really know to need to understand this. And then the baby gurgles and wiggles happily. These are more action words. You can see that they're giving good descriptive words that help us feel it and become more engaged. And writers will always do that because you don't want someone reading your script and being bored. So you have to make it as interesting as you can. Down here, they say a golden glowing sphere rolls from behind the screen. It's a memory of what we just saw mom and dad cooing at Riley. Whoa. Joy rolls the memory on its track, illuminating the room. She turns back to the button and pushes it again. These are really interesting words. And I don't know if you guys ever think about using a lot of descriptive words, but I would probably try my best because the person who can't see it and is just hearing it needs the most information they can to imagine it in the most, I guess, delicious way, in the way that's going to appeal to more of their senses. Does that make sense? I mean, it really does appeal to the senses, right? When it says it rolls the memory on its track, illuminating the room, it's way better than saying Joy runs the memory on the track and it lights up, right? Illuminating the room is much more beautiful, much more engaging. Let's see, I'm trying to see if I find one in here with more action. Let's see, Riley continues to her sprint through the house. Suddenly she's picked up. So if somebody's running and then they're being picked up, do you think there might be any other way to say this to include some action words? Like when they had bang? Can you guys think of any words that maybe relate to sprinting or all of a sudden being picked up? The word that comes to mind for me with picked up is whoosh. Whoosh, like whoosh, she's picked up.
It's 8:30.
And I might, if I was writing this, say either suddenly whoosh, she's picked up, or just get rid of the suddenly and just whoosh, she's picked up. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And that might make it more interesting. and continuing her sprint since we know she's running. What does running maybe sound like? I know when we tiptoe, it's like sometimes there's maybe a little pitter pat, right? That little soft noise, that little pitter pat. That might be interesting. Um, it helps give movement to the words. And I know they're not going to be reading the words, but they're going to be hearing them. But things like that might make it more interesting for the listener. I like this one, this big plop. Plop into high chair, bib, tray, bowl. Here we go. All right, open. Now, this is just in this thing that we have as exposition. It's not going to be even said on screen, but it's really cool. There's a little bit of alliteration in there with bib and bowl, right? We have plop, which is an exciting action word. It's kind of fun. All right, I'm going to find one that doesn't have anything interesting on it, and let's see if we can come up with some stuff. Do you guys want to try that? Maybe? Okay, let's see. Let's find. Let's see. All right, let's look at this one. This one has some good chances for some nice action words. If you guys want to take those two sentences, and you can take either just one or the other or both, and try to incorporate some of your middle school action words into there. Something exciting, and maybe even some exclamations. Do you guys want to try that? Yes? Okay, I'm going to make you. Just do it. Let's just do it. Okay? All right. I'm going to watch the chat and I'll see what comes up. And you can always look up action words too. You can look up words. Oh,
Come on, guys, in the chat.
yeah, slams. That would be good. Slams. So instead we could say something like maybe slam. 2.5-year-old Riley shoots a hockey puck. That would be one way to do it. So in other words, we'd have the word slam here in front of this 2.5. Just slam, exclamation point. 2.5-year-old Riley shoots a hockey puck across the ice. Yeah, whiz. Oh, that's so good. That's great. That's great. Yep, swoosh. That's a good one. Aren't those words so much more exciting? It makes it more interesting, right? Good, you guys. That's good. Does anybody else have one they want to throw in there? Okay. If you do, we'll go back there. All right. Let's see. I'm going to show you something else. So do you guys ever, I know it's a weird thing. You guys probably have to read plays, right? Because you guys definitely have to be reading some Shakespeare and stuff like that. But do you guys ever read screenplays or look any up online or see what TV or film scripts look like? Or just plays? Just plays? Yeah. Okay. There's a lot online. There's a ton in there, and people have really interesting ways of describing things. Let's see. I'm going to put up something else. This was another example I had about less is more. I wanted to show you. I don't know if this is kind of small. Let me see if I can make it bigger. That's bigger. So here's a description, and they're saying for this prison cell block, the dark hallway made entirely of stone stretches into a black void. The dripping of water is heard. Its condensation escapes from in between the stones and into muddy puddles on the wet floor. The only light source comes from the cell block windows, the beams of the moon sneaking in between the rusty bars that keep prisoners from their dreams of freedom. Okay, that's pretty much a novel. In the screenwriting world, that's way too much. This is way too much information. It would be way too much if you put that in Youdescribe, right? That would take entirely too long. You'd probably be moving into the next scene by the time you finished reading all that. So we would never do that, because if people wanted to read a book, they would read a book instead of watching a video or watching a movie. So better would be this: dark, wet, shadows overcome any source of light. Now, you guys would probably have to do something a little bit more in between that, because I'm assuming that the person who can't see it doesn't really know what is necessarily dark or wet. You'd probably definitely have to include in there that the prison cell is dark, wet, shadows overcome any source of light, right? That's what I would assume. I haven't done a Youdescribe video, but that's what I'm assuming. Let's see. Here's another good one on the same page. And this guy here, I want you to see this part down here where it says zip, zip, zip. Bullets rushed past him. That's way more exciting than just the bullets rushing past him or bullets flying at his head. That zip, zip, zip makes it kind of fun. Also, he sees muzzle flashes from within the tree line. This is more interesting than maybe just saying he sees a muzzle inside the tree line, or he sees what he thinks may be a muzzle. To say that it flashes gives us that indication of like, oh yeah, I know what flashes is. Like I see it for a moment and it's gone. Let's see. Yeah, we never put soundtracks in. There are also these, I don't know if you guys have ever seen these videos that are from script to screen. But I thought of them when I watched some of your videos. I thought, oh, it's kind of like script to screen. There's all these videos on YouTube called script to screen, and where you can actually look at a scene from a movie, and at the same time, they will show you the script. And there's this one from La La Land, which is really cute. Let's see if we can start there at the beginning. This is the beginning. Mia and Sebastian trudge up a hill lined with cars. Mia aims her key fob, no beep. Sebastian points his own keys, also aiming for a beep. Silence. They've been at this for a while. That shows us that time passes. I don't know if when you're describing it, if you have to say they're walking and still searching for the car, but this to me is more interesting, maybe because my brain is always tuned into this way of writing. But they've been at this for a while is a short, quick way of getting to the point that this trudge up the hill is, and finding their cars is going to take a bit. You can, these things, this one's from La La Land, A Lovely Night, and I don't want to play it because it'll get really noisy. Let's see if I can slide it there. You can see that you can read what is happening. It might give you guys some ideas of like what to do um, when you describe things. Here's one. Just then they reach a clearing and the city skyline appears below. A ribbon of lights stretching as far as you can see. It's the most romantic sight imaginable. They look at each other, a beat, then, and then. The beat is just like a moment. You probably wouldn't include that, but I would love to hear a video narrated a ribbon of lights stretching as far as you can see. That's definitely an interesting way to describe what this scene of Los Angeles looks like, the ribbon of lights. It's better than saying the lights below them from the city are glowing, right? A ribbon of lights is shorter, it's more beautiful. It actually has motion in it because it's a ribbon of lights, and we know that a ribbon has movement. It's wavy, right? It's giving motion to what you're describing, which I also think is important because what you're trying to give somebody is, I guess, the experience of motion through your words, right? You're not trying to give them a static experience. You're trying to give them an experience of motion, even though they can't see it. I'm going to assume that even if someone is born blind, since we have a body, we all have that experience of motion itself, and motion itself is exciting, way more exciting than the static. Probably gives us more dopamine too, for sure. Let's see if there's another little chunk here. Oh yeah, this looks cute. So they try to downplay the romanticism of this setting, this moment being lost here at night, alone together atop a hill, the city glittering. Glittering is another good one. That's so good, guys. The city glittering before them. It's no big deal, nothing they haven't seen or felt before, because after all, there's no chance for romance between them. Words like glittering, ribbon, those kinds of words really give a rich sense of what is being seen, much more rich than when we use what our teachers call like boring words, right? The boring words like pretty or beautiful. To say the city is glittering is way more enchanting. I don't know if you guys also have lists of words. One of the things that I do as a writer is I collect all my favorite words. And just off the top of my head, I love words like gossamer and periwinkle, blossom, adjunct. There are certain words that I really enjoy saying, certain words that I find really beautiful. The more that you can kind of collect words that you like, the more they're going to be right there for you when you want to use them or you want to paint your pictures with them. And that's really what you're doing. There's no real difference between writing something and painting something or drawing something. It's still art, and your words are like the colors from your palette, and certainly all of you have painted, right? Everybody's painted before. So the words are like your palette, and you need to have many colors and variations on your palette to get your point across. So the larger your vocabulary is, the more you're going to be able to say the exact thing without being repetitive or boring. What's interesting is that people with a large vocabulary generally are more successful in life. There have been many studies on this, that if you have a large vocabulary, you will end up more successful in academics, you'll end up more successful in social relationships, in romantic relationships, in working relationships. People will have a better view of you if you have a large vocabulary. And you definitely need that just to prepare for like the SATs and stuff like that. You don't want to try to learn a bunch of words just right before you have to graduate and take that test, right? You want to build your vocabulary and continue to build it throughout your life. So collecting words is one way you can do it. You can just get like any little journal and write down different words you like. Um, there's this wonderful book. It's called No More Boring Words. I'll put it up. It's this kid's book, but it's really amazing. Let me see if I can show it to you in here. I don't have a license to give it out, but I'll show you what it is. And you might be able to just get a copy on the internet. And it's a book full of just interesting words. And your teachers probably handed you out sheets from this when you were a kid. Most teachers do. There's like a page on transitions, essay verbs, but mostly teachers would hand out these ones, the action verbs, or the colors. Even more. There's so many words for said. There's just tons. Whoever uses churlishly? Probably nobody, but it's there. It's there for us. We can use it. And the more words that we know, the better we're going to be able to describe. But there's tons of beautiful words in here. So like, for instance, just these words for brown, and this is just out of a book for 4th to 8th graders. There's all these different types of brown. There's umber, sandy, sepia, mulch, mahogany, khaki, henna, hazel, fawn, ginger. And if you have these words at your disposal, it's going to sound way better than saying brown, right? Way better. And somebody's going to get it, that there's this nuance of what you're saying. Instead of saying something is gray, say it's pearly. Maybe it's a pearly oyster or a pearly slate, right? There's tons of great ones in here. And I highly recommend this book. It's so cheesy that it's like for little kids, but it's wonderful. It's like a wonderful little booklet of just amazing words. I love this, like knife-edged, pronged, raggedy, razor sharp, serrated, ridged. Who uses these? Well, we should be using them because they're there and they make us more interesting. I mean, the most obvious thing to say about the importance of vocabulary is looking at somebody who is a great orator like Barack Obama, right? He's a guy who, no matter what his politics are, you can't argue with the fact that he's a great orator. He has at his disposal a huge range of words, right? This huge range, which makes him hold his power and his communication in a different way compared to the president we had last, who only probably used about 200 words, right? He had a very small vocabulary and people regularly kind of made fun of him because he had barely any. So I don't think you need much more proof than that you want to build your vocabulary up. This you can get on the internet. I think you can get the digital copy, Vantage Foreign Words. My other favorite one is Power Thesaurus. That's like an online thesaurus. I don't know if you guys use that for school, but I use this thing all the time. I'll find it for you. Power Thesaurus is like, it's crowdsourced, kind of like Wikipedia. So everybody kind of decides as a group if this word is close enough. But this thing is great. So we could say peach. Peachy, let's do peachy. Great dandy meat, swell, nifty, cracking, cracking, corking. That's a good one, cracking. It was a cracking good time. We had a peachy good time. It was a keen time. It was a bang up time. This is way more interesting than it was just a good time, right? This thing is Power Thesaurus. I think it's just like powerthesaurus.com. See if I can move it down. Yeah, powerthesaurus.org. It's a .org. But that one's really cool if you don't ever use it. Yeah, I'm really big on vocab because I really see writing or describing as really it is painting. And imagine if you only had three colors. Well, if they're red, yellow, and blue, if they're the primaries, you have a good chance at making a lot of variation. But let's say you're not allowed to mix. If you're not allowed to mix, all you have is red, yellow, and blue. How's that painting going to turn out? I don't know. Are you really going to be able to say everything you want to say and use all the different shades that you want? Not really. You're probably not going to be able to even show depth, right? It's the same with our words. So if you only have like a little basket of like the 200 words that you like, you're not going to be able to describe all the things that you want to be able to describe in the world. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Let's see. There's this one. I really like this one, and this one had a lot of visual stuff in it. I love this little movie. This is my favorite dystopian film of all time. Wall-E. It's so, so cute. So you can see down below here, it says, Wall-E can't believe his luck. He rests his head on her shoulder. Bliss. Instead of saying, Wall-E's so happy he gets to be with her, right? It's just, he rests his head on her shoulder. Bliss. That's really sweet. And it's a way more interesting way of saying it. Let's see if I can get that little part up with electricity. I don't know if you can see it down here, but down here it says a tiny arc of electricity passes between them. A thank you kiss. That little arc of electricity could have been said so many different ways, but by saying that little arc of electricity, it makes it really sweet. I don't know if you can see what it looks like. I'll play it and see. Nope, there it was. That little arc, that little zip. You could even include that zip. A little arc of electricity passes between them. It's so sweet. It's so much better than saying it in a boring way, right? And then down here, he's saying, it says, Wall-E's meter spikes. He floats circles in space. He floats circles in space. So they're not saying he moves in circles. They're not saying that. They're saying he floats circles in space, which sounds grammatically crazy, but we know what it means, right? We would never put this in an essay or anything. It wouldn't make sense. But if we're describing motion or something visual, it's completely appropriate to use what we call fragments, right? Or dependent clauses all by themselves. It's totally fine, especially in description, because I don't think that the people listening they're not concerned with that. Something you might notice about scripts and about the way you describe video that's in motion or moving pictures or motion pictures is that it's actually really close to poetry. It's much closer to poetry than it is to what we call novel writing or narrative writing. It's much more about that bing, bang, boom, he flew across the sky. It's much more like alliteration. There's a rhythm to it. And that's because it's movement, it's moving, it's dancing. You have to give the words the movement because they can't do it on their own. Let's see what that goes up a little bit. And I think there's a ton of these online, guys, a ton of these. It's really kind of fun to look at them. Oh, so he shakes his head, holds up his extinguisher instead. Do you see that? Chases after him, spins in a pirouette and flies away. Eve giggles, chases after him. It's way more interesting than full sentences, right? It's like your one chance, I think, to not use proper grammar or full sentences. You can play with the words rhythmically as if you are the poet. You're the poet, you're the narrator in this way. Do you guys have any questions about anything I've said? Would you like me to talk about anything else? It's almost like been an hour. I don't know what else I can say. Do you guys have any comments?
Do you guys have any questions to Cecilia tonight?
I just came in late, so I have a question.
Okay.
Like what types of video do you recommend for us to describe? Or
To
like,
describe. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like when do you mean like you get to select the videos? Like what ones would I say to do?
yeah.
Well, probably comedy would be my top choice if it were me doing it, because usually there's a lot of motion in comedy. There's a lot of chance for you to play with the words. I was watching one that was, somebody was describing this famous episode from Seinfeld where Jerry and Kramer are watching a surgery, and Kramer has a box of candies and he hands one to Jerry. Jerry doesn't want it, and then it pops down. It like falls into the guy who's having surgery. And the person was, they were doing a fine job narrating, but I probably would have said something like, oops, pop, maybe those types of things. That would be interesting to me to do. I think there's a lot of motion in that. Anything where there's movement, where there's going to be something moving either physically or emotionally. Emotional movement as well can be really thrilling to write about, really kind of fun to describe. I think a little bit we saw that in La La Land, where they're silent and they've been at this for a while. Even in that, you can actually feel the movement of the tension being pulled between them. I think anything that has movement has to be infinitely easier to describe and more fun. Like this, like spins in a pirouette, like Wally spins in a pirouette, circles away, she chases after him. That would be probably fun to me. Also probably cooking videos, because probably cooking videos, you're going to have a lot of good description. Like you could say things like slurp or crackle or crack or sloop. You could probably even make up your own words, as long as the point can come across. Like sloop obviously is like something liquidy going sloop into the bowl, right?
Yeah.
Probably something like that. But they all look kind of neat. I mean, I think it's really great that you guys are working on describing these, because it's I never thought about how you really can't read Braille on the computer to watch a video. You do have to have somebody describe it to you. And hopefully the person describing it is doing it in a colorful way that you can feel it and be there. What's interesting is that when we even read a narrative, they give us a lot of description, but don't you guys also make up at least 90% of it in your head? I mean, we really do. Like as people, we're not really just going, oh, these are the facts. Oh, it only says this, so I guess that's all I can imagine. You don't do that. Your brain takes off and like creates a whole scenario, what the house looks like, what the town looks like, what the people look like. And then it's always disturbing if we read the book and see the movie later and the actor doesn't look like the person we had in our head, right? We're always like, wait a minute, that's not how they look. That's not how the house looked. That's not how I imagined it. Because even if we read a wonderful novel, 90% of it, we're making it up. we're making it up. And we're doing the same thing even when we're looking at like those static art pieces that I showed in the beginning. We all have our own interpretation of what the art is and what we see and what pops out at us. We all have our individual perception, and then we also have our collective perception, right? So yeah, I think for me, I'd want to do the motion ones, and or any clips of musicals with dancing. Like, do they have clips of that? Like sometimes they have clips of West Side Story or something. If I had to describe that, that would be so fun. Maria twirled in, you know, stuff like that. And that seems kind of fun to me.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else?